this has been exacerbated by several challenges and several circumstances. We've seen violence in homes, violence in schools against children, and violence all over us. And the World Health Organization has attributed this to a lot of so very many things. There is, violence which has caused, we're talking about psychological and so many things. But today we want to center on the violence against children in our communities. And guess what? Today I'm joined by an advocate for FIDA Uganda, and that is Elizabeth Kemigisha, and we're going to be diving straight deep into this, understanding what is violence, what are the types of violence, because you may be exerting violence against your child, or a child could be suffering from violence and people are unknowingly, or maybe people are ignorant about it. But what is violence, and what does it look like, and what are the types of violence? Elizabeth, good to have you, and welcome on the Health Morning Show.
Hello, good morning. Nice to be here.
All right. Yes. Elizabeth, let's come back after this short break, and we'll kick out from there.
Focus on Healthy Morning. Focus on Healthy Morning.
But for starters, Elizabeth, what is violence? This is your camera. I want to address the nation, that everyone will know what violence is.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you for tuning in today morning. Like I've been introduced, my name is Elizabeth Kemigisha, and I work with the Uganda Association of Women Lawyers that many of you commonly know as FIDA Uganda, and it doubles as an NGO and an association that brings together Ugandan women lawyers. And as an NGO, a lot of the work that we do has a positive bias towards women and children as our core beneficiaries, which perhaps explains why I'm here today. And violence could mean many things, right? Violence could mean physical, could mean emotional, could mean psychological, but as long as it's harm, something that is not done in the best interest of the child, harm that is inflicted on the child, whether physically, sexually, or psychologically. And I know we have several other types that we rarely talk about. We rarely talk about the fact that children are stressed. Right, that children have mental challenges, right, in the homes. I remember during COVID-19, I watched on TV a child specialist speaking about the fact that many children right now are stressed and they do not have all the support that they need from either parents. And it's because it's not things that are very common in our communities that a child is stressed. Even for adults, for many of us, it took us such a long time to agree that that is even a challenge that needs to be tackled. But yes, violence, infliction of any harm, whether it's physical, whether it's mental, whether it's sexual, towards on a child. And a child in our laws is any person that is below the age of 18. So it doesn't matter the size of the child, it does not matter the class of the child, it does not matter what physically they look like. For as long as someone is below the age of 18, then they are a child.
Maybe this one takes me to a question, the types of violence, because there are these violence you've mentioned about psychological. Now that one is really tricky, because you may not know that you are inserting or you're exerting violence upon a child. Yes, it's actually taking center stage. So what would be some of the types of violence?
I've tried to highlight some of those. Of course, the physical violence is the one that we usually easily see, right, in our communities. And it's very easy for someone to say that child might have been harmed by a parent or guardian. And that's been really easy to see many times. And with physical, I know that it most times manifests in different ways, either in the homes or in the communities, in the homes or in schools, where we see these things happening. And with physical, it could also take different forms, right? We do have sexual violence that manifests in children. And the police crimes report that was released a few weeks ago, the police does release a crimes report every year that sort of breaks down some of these problems. And I was just noting earlier, out of 13,144 juveniles that were defiled in the Police Crimes Report 2023, 12,818 of them were female and 326 of them were male. What am I driving to? To the fact that some of the forms of violence usually are inflicted or are more visible in children that are girls. In no way are we saying boy children are safe in our communities. We are only saying that the numbers are showing that a lot of the physical violence, a lot of the sexual violence is inflicted on children that are girls. So we see that girls are more vulnerable because it disproportionately affects them, the sexual violence, like I've read for you from the police crimes report. You speak about there's emotional or psychological violence that is not usually easily visible. And I know that because of the economy and the way the world works, right, not many of our parents have the time to sit down with our children and psychoanalyze and know that my child this month has not been doing well, or them going to school, they're being bullied and harmed by somebody. Yes. And because many of the parents are in the informal sector that usually does not have the nature of protection or some of the protection that allows for women like myself that are, for example, in the formal sector, that I can take off leave and spend time with my children, that I can afford to say I'm taking my day off, compassionate leave. For many women in the informal sector that are they take lead in raising of children and catering to children for the women. They do not have that quote unquote that luxury to say, let me psychoanalyze and see if my child is okay. And for many times you'll see in communities and in schools, by the time it is realized that the child has been either physically harmed or psychologically harmed, the harm has been going on for the longest time and it's been unchecked. So it's important that, for example, parents are paying attention, but also that teachers are playing their duty. I'll just note that out of those numbers that I've mentioned of children that suffered violations to do with sexual, and that's defilement, 97 of them were defiled by parents, 90 of them were defiled by guardians, 211 were defiled by teachers, while 131 of all those children were children that were differently abled or persons with disabilities, right? Children with disabilities. And that goes to show that the people that are in that place of care, placed with the duty of care on the children, are not playing their role. If we are seeing these many numbers of, for example, teachers that are defiling children. So it's important that as a parent, you're paying attention. But like I'm saying, through the work that we've done in the institution, we see that sometimes it's almost impossible for parents to be as present as they could have been if they had, for example, better jobs, better access to social services, that I'm not panicking every day and looking around for money to cater to my children. But also, I think in terms of types of violence and in terms of how it manifests in communities. I know that also we must start to pay attention to violence that manifests from even fellow children. Right now, that's a very tricky one because they are both children, right? And because children are exposed to different things, we see a lot of unregulated TV. We see many children moved to the online space during COVID-19 and post because school had to go on.
Yeah, parents normally buy them tabs,
or even those that go on TV to see their teachers teach them and etc. So there's a lot of exposure of internet that sometimes is unregulated. It's very quick for a child to get on YouTube and watch pornography or is exposed to
parents
pornography.
Give their children phones, their cell phones, which has adult content.
So in everything we do, I think we must remember that the best interest of the child, as the Constitution, as the Children's Act, as the many international treaties that we have signed speak of, and they offer guidance on how to cater to needs of children to protect them from violence.
Elizabeth, if I may ask, when we see this, prevalent violence against children, is it a sign that parents or guardians or relatives are ignorant about child nurturing, or it is something that just comes out, caused by poverty or even other causes?
I'd like to say I think it's a combination of issues, including that the fact that also parents have relegated the duty of care to teachers or to other people in communities.
I thought schools are a safe haven for
yes,
children.
Schools are meant to be a safe haven, but a parent does play a role, right? That's why we have VDs for those in boarding school. That's why we don't have, what are they called, these parent-teacher meetings, where you go and check in on the progress of the child at school, the child being able to say that that's the boy that does this, that's the girl that does this to me. And like I mentioned, because of a combination of all those many issues we are seeing in schools, you know, we're also seeing the fact that parents do not have enough time to cater to their children. We are also seeing a breakdown in protection systems, social protection systems in communities.
Do parents not have enough time, according to you, Elizabeth?
I really think yes. And like I mentioned, it's because of the jobs that many parents do. If I'm waking up at 5 to make it to Nakawa Market, to make sure I get on that big truck and get my produce that I will sell, and I sell vegetables, I'm going to leave that market. Women usually leave 9, 10. I'm going to get home and my kid left school and is back at home. I'm not sure in what state they came back. I've probably found them dozing or playing outside, and I'm going to quickly ask that they go and sleep so that they are up at 5 a.m. with me to make it to school. At what point am I having conversations with my children? The kind of jobs that we do, which are actually a result of sometimes a broken economic system. Then it has this long-term impact on children because there's no time. And then I'd also like to just quickly speak about the breakdown of social structures, community support systems, right? I remember when we were younger, I think a neighbor could pick a child from the road and walk the child back home.
We grew up with a slogan, takes a village to raise
a child. Right now, there's a lot of individualism in communities that if it is not my child, I'll barely give it.
But also, you know, parents, I mean, when you chip in to correct this kid, is hey, yes, mind your business.
Mind your business. Why did you discipline my child? If they were crossing the road badly, you should have called me, you know. And the breakdown, like I mentioned, is also a combination of many factors, but I'd like to say the breakdown of social structures in communities affects children the most because there's limited protection for children from those surrounding them, right? But also there's limited response that it no longer shocks communities that a child of 5 was defiled, right? Because no one really cares much, and that breakdown is what facilitates in the long run abusers of this nature to continue doing this kind of
as the authorities also, you know, played some role to exacerbate these, you know, challenges.
I'd like to say the police and other justice and law and order sectors have played a key role in fighting some of this crime. Like the police crimes report says, I think there's a decrease in 1.5% of 5. I think it's still work in the crimes that were reported to the different police stations that were reported on. But I'd like to say also, because from the crimes report of 2022, we saw that the number of cases, for example, that were reported to police and those that made it to court through the justice system were really low. And I know that affects how communities also, you know, report. You know, if I do report today and I'm asked for example, money for fuel to look for the offender to be, or the perpetrator to be arrested, I'm not going to come back.
But also this reporting, Elizabeth, could break the relationship we have as a community. For instance, my neighbor, you know, defiled a child and you're like, man, this has been a long-time neighbor, long-time friend, we become like families. Now, community seeing me following up on that case because they did
it causes stigma around communities. And you know, a lot of violence to children does not, the perpetrators are usually people known to them. They're usually people we call auntie, people we call uncle, a friend of your mom's, a friend of a guardian, a neighbor that you've grown up with in the village. So, and they're usually repeat offenders, right? Rarely is an abuser of a child the first time they are doing it. Usually they've done it before, or there have been accusations that were not fully looked into, or because they did not report to police. And the breakdown of societies, I think it's also a combination of issues I'd like to say. People do not care anymore, right? People do not think that the systems are working, right? If I report my land matter today and it slugs, or I feel unfairly treated because maybe for corruption or because one particular officer did not play their role, then I'm going to get derailed from reporting. But also because, like I mentioned, if I go to police to report sexual violence and I'm asked to pay 20,000 to fill my police form 3, it's going to derail because it's 20,000, but many families cannot afford 20,000 shillings because many of them are surviving on less than 20,000 shillings a day. So because of those breakdowns of the social structures and communities, then it even becomes very difficult for you to have preventive measures to protect children.
Now, how do children be violent against their fellow children? That's what I'm really excited to.
So there is usually child-to-child crimes, if I dare call them. Okay. And you see, there have been instances where it's a 16-year-old girl and perhaps a 14-year-old boy, right, involved in sex. Right, they are both children. They're both below the age of 18, and sometimes they lack either direction and etc. But of course, there are instances where you'll find perhaps the perpetrator is 17, who is still a child, right? But then maybe the victim is about 3 years old. Of course, there's a difference in how all those crimes are treated under the criminal justice system. And of course, you see, it causes alarm when, say, it's a 3-year-old and the perpetrator is, say, 15, is 17, because there is usually a thinking, yes, a 17-year-old is still a child. But when they go to court and there is an assessment, you cannot compare a 17-year-old to a 3-year-old. So there are those instances, but we've also seen instances where children are physically violent to others that are a little younger, right? We see videos all over social media where you find, say, a 15-year-old beating up a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old, right? Those are offenses, and those are usually difficult to deal with because those are both children, and we don't have, our structures still need strengthening to be able to respond to such cases while taking into consideration the emotional, the psychological bit of what those offenses do to the children that are involved in such matters.
What is happening is that there is our next session, which I want to us to offer solutions to the parents, but that will be after the break. But before we go to the break, I've seen violence against children in schools.
Yeah.
That one. Yet every parent knows that when I have my child, entrust this child in the hands of these tutors, even if I go and relax and do my work, I know all is well. But before you know it, sometimes they come out and they're pregnant, sometimes they are, sexually harassed, or even from their fellow students and everything. How do we go about that? And how does that happen?
I think, how does that happen? Because they're abusers, but to speak to that, of course, like I mentioned before, 211 out of the 27,125 cases that are reported of defilement were teachers that were responsible for this nature of violence. And that's not the only violence.
Come again on that statistic?
It's out of 27,125 cases of defilement. 211 of those were defilement by teachers.
Jesus Christ,
right? And these are persons that are mandated with protection of these children, especially in those spaces that we call schools, where they go to seek an education. And of course, it's a worrying state of affairs because, like I mentioned, this is the person that is in a place of protection. Yes. You're not supposed to protect that child, and a parent is paying money to make sure that this happens, right? And like I mentioned, that does not remove the parent from the care and the extent of care that they should have towards their child. But like you said, schools have always been looked at as safe havens for children, right? That if my child in school, that they are safe. But this report shows us a need for us to pay more attention to what is happening to the children at school.
Elizabeth, she's an advocate with FIDA Uganda, and we're tackling the violence against children in community and how we can really combat this. We're taking a break. When we come back, she's going to unpack for us solutions. What is our role as parent? What is our role as community? What is our role as authority? And how can we, chip in and put this thing under our feet? We'll be right back.
Focus. Focus on Healthy Morning. Bethany TV for Health.
UNICAF and Bethany Group are hosting a virtual webinar on the basics of infertility on March 15th, 2024 from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Zoom. Earn a generous UNICAF scholarship to pursue a British bachelor's or master's degree online from one of their prestigious UK partner universities, the University of East London, Liverpool John Moores University, and the University of Suffolk. Register now and achieve your academic dreams. For more information, please send an email to info@uganda.unicaf.org or contact us on WhatsApp at 771 976 750.
Hello Uganda! Angelic Psalms presents Angelic Psalms Volume 1, an experience of worship you don't want to miss. It shall be recorded with a live audience on the 8th of March 2024, this Women's Day. Gates will be open at 3 p.m. at Amazing Grace Faith Auditorium next to Total Bukoto near Radio Simba. This event will be featuring Rachel Namubiru, GK Enoch, Sandra Subi, Pastor Justin Nabosa, and Jamari. Please tell a friend to tell a friend that entrance is free. See you there!
Exciting news for all viewers of Bethany TV. Bethany TV, the premier health TV channel in Uganda and Africa, and also your favorite TV station, is now on Star Times. You can now watch Bethany TV day and night, weekdays and weekends on Star Times, channel 271. Catch your favorite programs on health, wellness, entertainment, and so much more. Bethany TV is also available on free-to-air, GoTV, YoTV, Airtel TV, and Afro mobile apps. Not forgetting online via our website www.bethanytv.ug and social media platforms at Bethany TV UG. Bethany TV for health. Showing on Bethany TV.
Life is a juggling act, with the demands of life posing the need to look glam and rise to the occasion. But amidst all this, there are things that cannot be compromised, like how we care for our skin, tend to our scalps, revitalize our looks, and rock the ever-changing apparel dynamics.
Join me, your host, Arasima, every Sunday at 3 p.m. on Skincare and Beauty as we understand in depth how to care for our skin and look glam in a healthy way.
Showing on Bethany TV.
Conscious, found face down in the mud.
I count. 1, 2, 3.
Hypnotic on scene, but improved recessioning.
Son of a bitch! What? You killed Drew!
I'm gonna read you those vows that I still have to write.
I love you.
Share my crackers.
I don't like crackers.
Well, what do you like? We'll order it up.
Don't understand how this happened. I mean, I was just trying not to poison my kids.
Code Black every Thursday and Friday at 9 to 10 p.m. with repeats Mondays and Fridays 11 to midday. The Higher Life, the era of the World Revolution, with Apostle Dr. David Kunawa and Pastor Rita Bella Kunawa of Rivers of Life Assembly International, Boston, Massachusetts, USA. Streaming every Tuesday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. East African Standard Time with the incorruptible, incomparable, and revolutionizing life-transforming Word of God. Only on Bethany TV for health. Bethany TV for health. Focus. Focus on healthy morning.
The rate at which violence against children is taking center stage is really, really worrying. But this has been attributed by several factors, among which include the ignorance of certain parents, maybe the negligence of certain parents, the workaholism of certain parents, but also the nature of community and society and the economy, which is really also proving to be insurmountable, as in, posing a great threat and resistance to our lives. But today I'm joined by a lady, the advocate Elizabeth Kemigisha, who is an advocate at FIDA Uganda, female and wonderful advocate, and we're really casting light to see how can we help the parent out there, the school out there, the community out there, the guardian out there, to avoid and put a stop on violence against our children. Social media has really played a big role in really exerting a lot of violence against our children. The way we, expose our children on social media, we put there our photos, we do a lot of stuff. And recently there is a lady who really posted her child, a baby, and the backlash was too much. The comments were so impolite and unfriendly. Elizabeth.
Yes, please.
What is the solution to this predicament?
Many solutions to the many problems that we have, but I think I'll speak to solutions in terms of communities, then solutions in terms of schools, and then solutions in terms of parents.
Yes, please.
One of the methodologies, one of the tactics that Uganda has used that have been globally recognized as responding to issues of protection of children is schools. And the Ugandan government is commended for the Universal Primary Education and UCE as an initiative to encourage children to attain an education, to stay in school, because I know it's a lot easier, or it's been believed that it's a lot easier to have children in a school setting and it's easier to protect them within particular settings, right? So one of the solutions I think is going to be really keeping girls and boys in school, especially girls because of their dropout rate of girls and due to COVID-19, but also when you NEB this year, early in January or February, released results from last year, you could see a reduction in the number of girls that leave primary 7 to enter a secondary school. And I think that should be an issue that we are concerned with. Why is there high school dropouts, right? What is causing it? And of course, quickly, I would say, I know that rates of school fees these days, that has been noted as one of the reasons why there are several costs that are associated with keeping children in school that sometimes parents do not find. But also socio-economic reasons, other socio-economic reasons, culture and traditional norms that continue to force certain families to pull girls out of school or marry them off young, or forcing them to get into actions or quick debit into sexual activities that then leads to teenage pregnancy, which has a whole cycle of now break out of school, drop out of school, and etc. So one, I think we must encourage children to stay in school for both the government to make sure that schools have the quality education.
Exactly, and I think government here has a very pivotal role, especially in some illiterate, with all due respect, communities where they see girls as commodities. I mean, when they turn 13, they want to marry them off, they get dowry, so I think those communities,
it's important,
has to be a mandatory education, and government has to crack a whip, because there are countries, when they find a child not in school, that is a curse.
Even communities, by the way, there have been communities where you'll find people asking, but why does so and so's child not go to school yet they are a young child? There are communities where these are things that are still happening. So outside education, I think it's important that schools are also playing their role in ensuring that kids actually have quality education, and that's to be able to hold staff accountable. These 211 teachers, for example, last year from the police crimes report that defiled children, are there consequences for those teachers? I think there's a police report also early Feb where a teacher trespassed into the home of a teenager with an intention to have sex with this teenager. For teachers to be doing such, there must be, accountability for some of those things that they do, and we'll be sending a strong message when we do that.
Exactly, and that one again, strong punishment if it means closing the school.
Suspending to be able to be sure that this school is actually a safe haven for children. Because if teachers are doing these things, then also fellow students are going to follow suit.
Because the seniors teach the juniors.
Yes. We also see I know corporal punishments were banned in Uganda, I think in 1997.
Yes.
So I also would, I think, as part of recommendations to make sure that schools are safe from not just sexual violence, but also physical violence, because we've also seen instances in the news, the media reporting about, say, a child that was beaten into a coma. What do you mean you've beaten a 12-year-old into coma? What kind of beating is that leads to a child to that space? Because all those factors push children to break out of school.
Yes.
Then also in terms of community response, I think it's important that communities are playing their role of building structures where children feel safe, where we report, where we do believe children. You've had instances of where a child says, Uncle so-and-so touched me in a bad place.
And unfortunately, parents do not believe their own children.
Exactly, which is very, very heartbreaking, because you have the total mandate of ensuring that your child is well, but because they've reported Uncle so-and-so, who is believed to be a big person in the communities, who is believed to be someone's other parent, who is perhaps an LC1, who is perhaps a counselor around the community. So it's important that we are believing children, but also that we are building structures that are able to respond to this nature of violence. A citizen can arrest, you have the mandate to arrest someone if you feel that they are going to commit a crime, or in the process of them committing a crime. We need to encourage communities to report, because if we do not report, then this is going to become business as usual. It's no longer going to shock you that a 5-year-old was defiled. It's business as usual.
We need to resurrect that saying, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yes.
Let everyone get involved. Bikukwateko bate bikwatako kuba tugenda tuwulireyo omwana wo gwa muzaala naye kasoba ng'oli mu kyalo mwendi binkwatako. So abantu bafune endowooza eyo nti okulaba omwana ng'anyigirizibwa ku mulirwana naawe kikwata kubanga omwana ono asobola okuba omugaso enkya nga yagenda okuyamba n'omwana
muneeno ne bw'aba tagenda kuba wa mugaso omwana jjukira ye omwana depending on adults for protection. So wabata ine your protection at the end of the day chiba chimu affecting. And it's important that we also pay attention to the law, right? Uganda is a country that has, I think we keep on singing, we have several laws and policies, strategies under Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Gender, which for example has the strategy through which the government ensured that girls are going back to school after the teenage pregnancies. And these laws are supposed to be implemented. So it's important that the government is actually also deeply investing in these things. If we say that we should have a person at the district that is responsible for monitoring schools, do they have the budgets to do that? Because if you do not monitor, then teachers will go ahead or schools will go ahead, not meeting the standard that takes into consideration best interest of the child, which ensures protection of these children. So it's important that also laws are being implemented, but also more importantly that we are investing in these things, that we are investing in protection structures in schools. We've had instances of where schools say they do not have food, UPE schools. They do not have food in school, that at lunchtime children will loiter, those that packed will pack and eat, those that did not pack will perhaps go to neighboring villages to look for food. So all those expose children to instances of violence. So it's important that the laws are also getting implemented, that those that are meant to be punished under the law are getting punished right under the law. For each time there is impunity, there is somebody getting affected. Usually that person will either be young, will either be poor, marginalized, right? So it's important that also laws are getting implemented and that there is investment in protection systems, in communities, in police, in court, to also encourage children. And I know that JELOS is doing exactly that, to increase protection for especially child victims, child witnesses in court, to be able to go to court and actually work on those cases, or to be able to participate in court processes in a manner that doesn't further expose them to violence or abuse of that nature.
Yes, Elizabeth. What about the religious and cultural leaders' response in this?
I cannot underscore the importance of cultural leaders, influencers in communities, local leaders, local councilors, councillors, the Nabachalas around the communities, the police, etc., and the line of what you talk about, cultural leaders. And I know that in certain communities, even when it may not be very common in Kampala or in many urban and semi-urban areas, in most of the rural areas where a lot of this violence is infected, religious leaders do play a role. Cultural leaders in discouraging cultural practices and norms, right, that do discourage girls from going to school, that discourage girls from dropping out of school, that do encourage girls to stay in school and complete school, but also that encourage parents not to discriminate their children. Because you've seen communities where if a child is 12 and 13 and they are choosing between a girl and a boy to stay in school, they'll quickly choose for the girl to drop out of school. So because of that disproportionate nature of impact of these different discriminations on boy children and girl children, it's important that we are paying attention to the role that church plays. I know because we do not have a lot of time, I will not delve into it, but churches do play a role because also churches and mosques and other religious spaces are also a space that I know many parents do take their children for holy matrimony, for what is it called? Darasa for the mosques, for counseling sessions for children that are going to do exams in P7. There are all these sessions, youth camps in schools, in the different religious denominations where we all come from. And in those also, we do not think that they are all fully safe, except if there are these protection measures that are in place. So it's important also that we are encouraging religious leaders to take into consideration the role they play in ensuring protection for children, but also in ensuring that they are holding those accountable in those different spaces, those people that harm children, because we can't take that away from
Elizabeth, there is a group that we are leaving behind, yet these are one of the greatest influencers nowadays, and these are the artists. Musicians, drama actors, comedians, the artists, I'm telling you, because our children imitate them. Our children see them as idols, the way they dress, the way they do things. I think it's a high time for them to sing songs advocating for children protection and their rights. One of them would be Maddox Sematimba, who used to, sing songs advocating for how to protect a child, how to nurture, how to guide. I think it's high time to call upon the musicians to join the chariot. What is your take on this?
I think I have mixed feelings about the entertainment industry and protection of our children. Rightfully so. Whatever industry, whatever business entity that is running in this country should take into consideration issues of human rights, like what's my contribution to a problem or my contribution to solving the problem at hand. However, I'm hesitant because these businesses, there's a role parents play. That's why you find in certain homes that certain TV stations do not play, right? Because there's those that do music for children, those that do music for adults. Just like TV shows. I've seen TV shows where they're talking about how to pleasure your partner at about 11 p.m. But that's not a program, for example, you will put for a child. So because of that, I am hesitant to put the full, not of course really full responsibility, to back up the fact that artists should play their role in how they dress, because also you are a parent, you have a role to play. What are you exposing your child to? If I am going for a show at night, where am I carrying my 12-year-old? If there's TV, I must make sure that my children, what they're watching on TV is that is age appropriate, because at the end of the day also, the TV has several audiences, right? There are those that are interested in morning programs because perhaps they're educational, we are sharing things that are important to them. There are those that watch K-dramas. I've had people that say, me, I watch that TV because and that's all they watch from TV. There are those that watch for TV for prayer, right? They switch on their TVs every evening and have a prayer, or wake up and have a prayer. There are those that put musicians that are entertaining, so they are shaking all these body parts and they are dressed in a manner to fit their audience. So I'm hesitant about that field because I know also there are artists, while their music, they dress a certain way, in a seductive way, that if they're invited to a school, they'll dress in a manner that is appropriate for school. So I think while they do their businesses, we should take this extra, it's not even an extra, our mandate, either as people that run TV, that you're running notices. I see TVs that say this particular program, the lighting may have an impact on people that have psycho ABCD, right? Run notices that this program, these days I know it happens, is suitable for viewers of ages PG, this and this, right? Guidance. So there is that extra responsibility that is now not extra, placed on a parent, a guardian, a caretaker of a child to say, between 7 and 8, I don't know why we are watching Bethany TV because there is a show for adults. So it's that sort of collaboration for us to sort of all work together to understand what role we play without taking away from what everyone's responsibility of making money is.
How about if they record music that is advocating for child protection, you know, that is, you know, preaching against children's violence. They act, you know, dramas. We used to see those things.
But perhaps that's not their, what can I say? That's not what they are good at, right? For me, I'm good at singing about a husband that takes care of their wife. That's my art. Because just so you know, art is subjective and we all have different talents. There are those that just know how to dance or what they call twerking, and that's their talent. So you're not going to force a twerking queen to now come to school to tell your children, go and report. I don't think that will be a responsibility that you want to place on that artist. But truly, we do have artists that sing educative music. We do have televisions that have programs for children, some that are either educative, cautionary, depending on what you're looking for. Right. I just worry that we shouldn't place the full responsibility of raising our children to artists that are also doing business and looking for money. And they're doing business in their, what I could call safe space, right? I'm not in your house and I'm not asking you to screen my music, right? So I think I have double feelings, mixed feelings about that.
Jennifer here from Entebbe is asking, how do we commit violence against our children psychologically? Yes.
I know that, and I know that in many African homes this may seem strange, but how you speak to your children, how you respond to your child's needs, how you respond to when a child comes to report, plays a key role in either strengthening the relationship between you and your child or breaking that relationship. Also, how you punish your child, how you communicate to your child. Many parents beat, I see several videos online, very gruesome videos where you find a parent is beating a child on the head, a 5-year-old on the head, and tufirawo omwana n'omukuba n'omukyusa because of one akugamba tolya mu maka, tolya wa neighbor. You beat this child and scare them from okwogera nawe. Omwana oludako tajja kujja kugamba that they're getting bullied at school. A child is not going to tell you that this one touched my bad area. So we do commit offenses without knowing. The corporal punishments in schools, but also at home. But also the lack of communication between parents. And here I'd like to fault our fathers, especially male guardians and parents who many times relegate this role to mothers. I've talked about how an example of a mother who works in a market, she's going to leave home at 5 and return at 9, right? I think men need to step up in terms of care, in terms of taking care of children at home, also playing that key role. Speak to the boys, addressing toxic masculinity. There are certain things that boys do because they think they are boys, and they're just not right. Who is speaking to the boys, right? Are fathers doing that? Are fathers nurturing relationships between their children?
We begin to shift roles.
Teyafumbye naye omwana omulenzi wali waka yetafumbye, and there is nothing because of this. You know, you're perpetuating a certain system that is now we are dealing with. The things we are dealing with now are things that were perpetuated by people that came before us.
There is a community in one of the parts of the country nga emirimu kufumba kola mirimu gya waka jikolebwa mwana muwala ng'omulenzi atudde.
Yes.
And that is so
Balaba TV, they are watching shows, cartoons while the girls are in the kitchen.
What happens that you're raising a lazy boy who can't take care of himself, who can't take care of others, who cannot take responsibility.
But also you're showing him that there is certain work that's meant for girls and work meant for boys. Let's date the idea, guys. If a boy washes dishes, it's not making them less of a boy. They need to share roles, and that's how we are raising men that think it's not okay for me to work with my partner to make sure there is food at the table. You know, that's why we are raising partners who get home at 5 p.m. but you wait for your wife to return at 8 to make you a meal because you don't think it's normal that you support your partner in one or the other in nurturing the children. So we do offend our children. So please communicate with your children. Open up the communication lines. My God, many times parents, you do not listen to the children. You do not believe them. You doubt. You create doubt when a child tells you something. Then the next time the child is not going to come and tell you. But also the lack of trust. You know, there's a breakdown in the fabric of trust between children and adults. We need to be honest. How we treat children. You know, we treat children sometimes as if people without agency, autonomy, as if there are people who are not able to make decisions. Children are also, they're autonomous beings. They are people that are able to, make decisions, but with support of their guardians, of their siblings, of their parents. So in many times when we also don't recognize that, we end up not opening up communication lines between children and their parents, which then perpetuates a lot of emotional violence between the child. Have you found parents, kids sometimes, who go and speak to the neighbor about a problem they've had, but they will not tell anyone at home? Because if a child feels safer the other way, at the neighbor's home where there's attention paid to you, to be able to, they ask, what is wrong? Okay, mama, speak to me. What happened? Where did they touch? What did they do? Who did you tell? Is teacher so-and-so doing this? So if that is not done, children do not feel safe. Just like, I usually give an example, how we relate to children. You could, relate it to how we relate to people that we are courting. You're trying to show me your good side. You're trying to show me you can call me, I'm reliable. And children get that sense. If they do not feel it, they will not feel safe in a home. And also sexuality education, comprehensive age-appropriate sexuality education is important.
What does that mean?
It means that you share information on sex or sexuality as a whole, sex education as a whole. That is age appropriate. A child that is 6, you've had children who say, you don't touch my special parts. Then a 12-year-old may not use special parts. A 12-year-old may say private parts. And then when they are 14, the language also changes. When they are 15, the language keeps changing. So age appropriate to mean things that children are able to relate to at a particular age. Also, I don't think I'm going to be talking to my child about, let me say, sexual intercourse in the vivid sense I would speak to an 18-year-old. If I'm speaking to a 10-year-old, I'll use language that is appropriate for their age.
Wow, this has been so insightful. Now, Elizabeth will be back here. We are going to create more time because this is still so much interesting. Elizabeth,
yes, please.
In this camera, please, in just 10 seconds, what will be your last to parents, school, community, and authority?
One, I want to begin with authorities. One, fully investigate cases of violence against children. It's important that we be seen to do the things and we implement the laws that we are passing so that we did not waste a lot of time in Parliament. The parliamentarians are doing the important job, so it's important that we are implementing the laws by fully investigating and responding to issues of violence against children. Secondly, to communities, I usually encourage communities to recognize the power that they have in responding to this nature of abuse. Be shocked that these things are happening. Report, but also believe victims, especially children. Believe them when they report. Believe them when they say things are not right. Believe them when they say Uncle so-and-so did something or Auntie so-and-so did something. So communities must believe, and they must strengthen that the structures, the social structures available for children to grow well. For schools should continue being a safe haven for children. So let it be staff, let it be fellow students, let it be the workers in the school. It's important that children feel safe at home, that they're safe at school, that they're protected from corporal punishments, that they are protected from sexual violence, and that the school structures are in such a manner that they punish perpetrators to send a strong message to those that may issue this problem. And then in homes, it's important that parents, you're playing your primary role of nurturing children, both the fathers, the mothers, the guardians that are male and female, the siblings, the neighbors, and everybody.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Yes, she's an advocate at FIDA Uganda. Chintu Mutesasira Senior's my name. Until we meet again tomorrow, take care of yourself and take care of others. Good morning. Bye.
Focus on Healthy Morning.